the lifespan of HomePods, and Mastodon tries to appeal to journalists. This is MacVoices. MacVoices is supported by BetterHelp. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/MacVoices today and get 10% off your first month. Well, since you just brought it up, that was actually my next story, is that the Apple's HomePods move into the vintage list. And macOS Ken this morning reported that this seems to be coming a bit early based on the release dates versus when Apple typically moves something to the vintage list. It's also a conversation I know we had back when Sonos did this with their original round of the Sonos speakers. And they had to back off on it a little bit because they were disabling the speakers. And they had to reverse the decision on that. But I have mixed feelings on this, and usually I'm not one that's super critical of Apple, but how long should a speaker be expected to last? Especially something as reasonably expensive as the HomePods.
I have thoughts on this.
Well, in the past, you'd say that speakers would last 15 to 20 years at the very least. The problem now is, since they're wireless and rely on some different type of connectivity, they'll last as long as that connectivity still exists in that format for that speaker. So if you have a HomePod and wireless standards have moved past what that HomePod uses, then it's essentially just a little brick that when you plug it in, it lights up. That's about all it's good for.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are misinterpreting what vintage means. It does not mean that Apple has forgotten the product exists, has thrown it out into a field to rust and become toxic waste. What it means is that the components to repair it are no longer going to be made by Apple and available through Apple channels once whatever supply is left has been depleted. Software updates, however, can still continue, and based on what this device is, likely will continue for a long time. So it's not like Apple has said, hey, that original HomePod you have, as of this week, it's trash. Throw it out. You can't use it anymore. That is not the case. And Guy, you hit on this when you said as long as the protocols are around, then the wireless connection stuff works. Exactly. So what we really have is a case of a product that didn't have much in the way of repairability options to begin with. It's now just something that Apple isn't going to continue making the parts for it. Basically, what would happen if you had a HomePod with an OG HomePod with a problem, you took it into the Apple store, they gave you a refurbished HomePod to replace it. And that was it. No one cracked it open. No one worked on it. The HomePod that you gave them was taken away and refurbished, if possible, and then given to someone else. So this is not a scenario where I think people need to be freaking out thinking, wow, Apple has already screwed me on this. What did we pay for the original HomePod? $400?
$299?
$300? Okay,
$349.
Yeah, it was $349.
Okay, so $350 we paid for one of the speakers. We haven't thrown away our $350. It's just that after however many years we've had them now, Apple is no longer going to be stocking the components to replace them. That's it.
That's also because they just classified it as vintage as of today.
Yep. That's the whole vintage thing right there. Yep. Software updates can still happen. This is not going to be a dead product, just a product that, no surprise at this point, if it fails, you're going on eBay or Craigslist to find a replacement, which is basically what we were already doing anyhow.
So let me
So I
read
can
the
get
chat.
out of my depression that I have that original HomePod and know that I'm still going to be able to use it, right?
Webb, don't be depressed about this. There's way too many other things to focus on
Be
for that.
depressed about it.
Yeah.
And if it's any consolation, I'm looking right now at my OG HomePod that I pre-ordered, got it on release day, and it's still working just as reliably as it always has.
And it still sounds good.
It still
I'm
sounds
still
good.
amazed how well they sound. Yeah.
Yeah, there are times where I think, man, I wish I could get a hold of another OG HomePod and have a set, because I know that when you use them in a stereo pair, the sound quality improves even more.
We should talk.
It sure does for the minis.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should talk, Webb.
I have
got
Not that I
two
want to
in-
talk to you, but yeah. Sorry.
I've got two HomePods in my office behind me with that hookup. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's I gave up on other speaker options. That is what I have in my living room. And you're right, Jeff. The sound is truly amazing.
Well, the sound improvement that I got when I went from a single HomePod mini to a stereo pair, I mean, it was shocking. And then I felt so stupid because I had one HomePod mini in the bedroom, the other one in my office. And one day I thought, wait, I've got two of these. Why aren't they a stereo pair? So I did it. And I'm like, holy crap, this changes everything.
Yeah. Bringing in the chat room, Ben says the OG HomePod is still being supported in HomePod OS 18. Good to know. Joe says assumption is HomePods will be unsupported in 2 years. So that's an assumption. We don't know that. I guess the question, I go back to the Sonos thing. You know, there are two parts of a HomePod that I think could go bad. The Bluetooth connection could be a challenge, and the smart speaker. And so, would it be realistic for Apple to say, but see, there's, other than being a Bluetooth speaker, there's no way to get audio into a HomePod. So, but could I just say I no longer want the smart speaker part of it? You know, and would that continue to add some useful life to it? Not as a smart speaker, but as a speaker.
Speaker you can AirPlay to that has the quality of the OG HomePod has value, even if that's all it does.
But will that be the case?
Don't know.
Not for a long time.
I don't know. It just, Guy, what you said, about the useful life of a speaker. Maybe I'm still thinking too much in that fashion, the way it used to be. That I spent a lot of money on speakers, and they lasted for a long, long, long time.
Yeah,
until
decades.
until the electronics took over, and then you're refreshing things a lot more often, like speakers and TVs.
Well, here's the difference. The difference is in the old days, it wasn't the speaker so much that would get replaced. It would be your receiver would get replaced, and components in the receiver would go out, and you would just get a new receiver, hook them up to the same speakers, and suddenly the speakers would sound wonderful again. Well, in the case of the HomePod, that's not really the case. It's kind of got its own built-in receiver and its own built-in speakers, and it just rolls until it can no longer receive a signal from wherever it used to receive a signal from, and then it's done. And there's nothing you can do about it. You might be able to repurpose it with, older computers or older Apple TVs or older TVs or something along those lines. But you're not going to, be able to keep it current with everything else that's going on. If you're using, oh crap, what is the application on the phone that all this stuff home? Whatever the application is that all the smart stuff for Apple hooks up into.
Oh,
home automation, yeah. Home, yeah.
If it won't go into home, if it can no longer connect up via home, then you might be able to still use it with a Bluetooth connection to an existing TV set, but you're not really going to be able to control it that well. Not like you could with a separate receiver and speaker.
Well, at that point, it's basically a wireless. It's an AirPlay speaker system.
Yeah.
Which I think still has value. People buy speakers right now just so they can do AirPlay sound or audio. So at some point, that's what the OG HomePod becomes.
And that Jeff, you bring up a great point. That may be enough.
It'll
that
have
may
to
be
be
enough. Well, yeah.
I think for some people, that will still be enough.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you use social media? How do you use social media? Figuring that out is the new critical skill of the 21st century. It's so easy to fall into the envy trap, where everyone else's life looks better than yours. The reality is that almost everyone posts only what they think are the most interesting and entertaining things. Somehow they forget to mention the leak in the roof, the flat tire in the garage, and the peeling paint in the bathroom. Therapy can help you develop positive coping skills to get you back on the right track. It isn't just for major trauma, but it's also effective for everyday life. BetterHelp is a great place to give it a try. Completely online, completely flexible, completely able to fit your schedule. A brief questionnaire is all you need to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you're on your way to living your best life. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/MacVoices today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/MacVoices. Thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring MacVoices. So skipping away a little bit from some Apple news, and forgive me, I forget exactly who brought this into one of our social channels. But Eric, I come to think of it, I think it was you. Why is this giving me trouble here? Mastodon apparently is going to be doing a bit more to support media organizations, journalists, and bloggers. I think some of the commentary was, well, it's about time.
So I totally get how you confused Eric and me, because Eric is so beautiful and I'm wearing a shirt that's a similar color.
I think we got Eric the spit take you were looking for last week, Jeff.
That's the one I was looking for last week.
Yeah.
Yep.
I apologize. I really, Eric, maybe you agreed with him. I don't know. There were so many things.
I commented on it. So
okay, that's why. So Jeff, I'll let you start then. What are your thoughts on this? Because as a former quasi current journalist, is this what we've been waiting for to lend not credibility, but maybe a wider appeal to Mastodon?
We've been waiting for tools in Mastodon for a long time that help bring more validation to this as a platform for journalists. And this is a big step in that direction, because it's one of those things that if you make it easy to find content by a specific journalist, then there's more value in the people that are using the platform simply because they can find more content by the same journalist. And if you as a platform are taking action that says, hey, we actively support journalists and bloggers, and we're doing it in a way that's open and transparent and isn't going to cost you money regardless of the size of your publication, then that's something that can be more appealing to journalists and bloggers. I remember for a long time, Twitter was the platform. I mean, no one ever considered where else would you go to interact with a journalist. It was just Twitter. And then since then, there have been multiple platforms that have come along where um, the idea was, oh, this is the one where we're going to see all of the news sites go. And so far, the answer's been no, not really. And that's still kind of a Twitter, well, now X thing. Although it's becoming more and more difficult for that to continue to be the platform for journalists. So once we get something that makes it easier to present a platform as a legit option for journalists, that's a good thing, because people have been looking for that for a long time. So I think what Mastodon is doing now makes that easier. And sorry, long-winded here, but I'm almost done. The problem that I see with this is inherent in the way Mastodon is designed. So Mastodon doesn't have a built-in algorithm to boost content, which is something that Twitter did and X does. So when a post would gain traction, then there was a higher likelihood that more people would see it, simply because it was going to get injected into more feeds. Mastodon doesn't do that, so it has to be an actual legit grassroots effort, meaning people are boosting a piece and it's showing up on more and more feeds because it's being boosted by more people. Right now, that's actually a problem, because that's not what journalism is used to on social media. They're expecting to have that built-in boostability, if you will, and the ability to pay for visibility. And you don't get that on Mastodon. But this is a good thing overall.
Joe in the chat room says tech types love Mastodon. Journalists have either stayed with X or have gone to Threads. And Ben says, if anything, the Fediverse has been semi-hostile to journalists and other business users.
Well, hopefully this helps address that hostility. The thing with journalists going to Threads, I'm finding some irony there, because Threads is journalist hostile. I mean, not like they're saying we don't want journalists here, but they are not doing anything to support visibility for journalists, and they have no intent to do that. Threads, as far as I can tell, does not want to be a platform for journalists.
I don't know. I've been surprised with, especially when Twitter was going through its extremely tough times, or now X was going through its extremely tough times, that one of the social networks somewhere didn't make a concerted effort to reach out, add some of these journalist-friendly features, and encourage them to move. And Webb, I know you and I have had this discussion several times on air and off.
Yeah.
That Twitter was, sorry, X. I'm trying to train myself. That X was not going to die for some of the very reasons that we're talking about here, but also that it had just become so entrenched as a place to go and be the one place you could usually connect with companies and journalists, but especially companies. You are much more likely, if you pick a company, to scroll down and find them to have an X account as anything else. I mean, the closest thing, I think, and this is just based on anecdotal reviews, would be an Instagram account. And that's so they can put up pretty pictures of their products. But Twitter seems to be where they still go to interact and get the word out.
Yeah, I first of all, I agree with you. It's I'm going to say some things that I think people on the panel will not agree with, but in my mind, like it or not, X was still the 400-pound gorilla in the social media space. It was very journalist friendly. I still see the on the local newscast. If you want to reach out to a reporter, there's generally an X address. I've never seen a Mastodon address on the for the local journalists, the TV reporters in my area at least. I know there are a lot of people that prefer Mastodon as a platform. I've talked about every week that I'm on all of them, just because of habit, I guess, addiction, call it. But I have the ability to separate the the management of X from what the platform is. I just have that ability. Some people don't feel that way. And to each their own. I support people that don't support the X platform, but I still think it's there, and I think it's going to stay there.
Can I respond?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Webb, you're right. And Chuck, the look on your face is like, what?
What?
But no, Webb is right. And Twitter X is the place where you still find the journalists. And that's the place that the journalists are still going to interact with their audience. Is their audience the same today as it was 2 years ago, or when Twitter or when X was Twitter? Well, no, it's not. But at the same time, no social media platform is going to always have the same demographic unless your platform is designed to cater to a specific type of person, in which case it probably will have a short lifespan. So yes, the journalists are on Twitter on X right now, and at least for now, that's not going to change. What will make that change will be if another platform gives them the tools and accessibility that they need so they feel like they can legit reach their audience. I think that's part of what Mastodon is trying to do right now. But then the bigger thing, this is not about what features any specific platform has per se. This is about momentum. No one is going to change what they're using until they reach a pain point that is no longer acceptable to them. And for most of the journalist community, that pain point doesn't exist today on X because they already know they are connecting with their audience, and that even if it's not their regular audience, that's where people are going to go find them anyhow. So until something changes that makes X not the place that meets their needs, they're not going to change. And that's just how business and human nature works.
Momentum.
Yeah. People will deal with a lot of things they don't like, regardless of what it is, until they hit the thing that they really don't like, and it becomes a big problem for them. And I think for some media outlets that has happened with X. For others, it has not. And it's not just an X thing. Media outlets that have been trying other platforms have been finding that they are not getting the value out of it that they need.
A lot of that comes down to the people just aren't there.
Mm-hmm.
Just the sheer size of X, Twitter, whatever, means that the official mouthpieces for companies and journalists and all the rest of that are going to stay there. I mean, when Musk first bought Twitter, it was filled with, "Oh, I can't stand this, I'm leaving," and then there was some mass exodus. But then over the course of a few years, you started seeing those people come back again because they just weren't getting what they wanted from Counter Social or Mastodon or Instagram or name your social media poison. It just wasn't there. So they came back holding their nose back into Twitter, X, whatever.
What
Yeah,
was the one that was doing microtransactions for journalists' content? Exactly. None of us can even remember, and it was supposed to be the big thing. And journalists have tried Blue Sky and haven't been pleased with that. Yeah. So until there's a big enough pain point, no one's going anywhere, or the journalists
or a
aren't
big
going
enough
anywhere.
audience.
Mm-hmm.
Someplace else.
That may be that may be what it finally comes down to. Does Twitter usage, does X usage drop to a point where the audience for journalists is not there? If that happens, then we will see that journalism exodus to another platform. And if it happens, I bet you, regardless of what the platform is, it will be this massive jump to a different platform. They will all go together. It might be Mastodon, it might be something else.
Jeff, I'm not sure I'm with you on that one. I don't think it'll be a massive jump. I think it might be a migration or a duplication.
That's a better way to put it, actually. It'll be a migration, but it won't be a trickle. It will be a steady, noticeable stream when it starts to happen, if it starts to happen.
Yeah, I mean, because I think we're not going to go down the Elon Musk road here, because that just leads to all kinds of bad discussions. But
madness.
If there was ever a time that was going to happen, I think it would have happened a few months ago when there was a height of the craziness, if there had been a place to go. But right now, there's no place that seems to be courting the journalist audience or the corporate audience. And I find it fascinating, especially given, the way Meta seems to want to monetize everything. I can't believe they haven't tried to do something. The closest thing is LinkedIn, and LinkedIn really they've sort of gone they focus more on the business side, but they really didn't even reach out, I think, and look for some of these folks. So it feels like an unserved or underserved market at the moment, if you discount Twitter. X.
Well, look at it this way. If you're asking people to make a choice between Meta and X, that's a horrible, horrible choice to ask people to make. And so inertia, once again, it's like, do we have to work really hard to go to a platform that we don't like, to leave a platform that we don't like? And if that's the case, then it's like, then why leave? And
yeah,
that's kind of where we are today.
We're not going to solve it here, but it is something I think to watch. I think it's really interesting, and see where we're going. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.